The evening began like any other on Long Island. A young woman returned home after hanging out with friends and sent a short message to her family to let them know she'd made it back safely. By the next morning, she had disappeared. Her phone was off. She missed work, and every call went unanswered. What unfolded after that last message? How could someone with so many people around her suddenly vanish without a trace? Those were the questions investigators would spend weeks trying to unravel, digging through secrets, deception, and hidden clues in search of a troubling truth. Rebecca Coster grew up in Medford, a quiet Long Island suburb where she lived with her mother, Barbara, and her stepfather, Larry Ross. She was especially close to her younger brother, and the family maintained a strong, connected relationship. Barbara, a nurse, served as a powerful example for Rebecca, while Larry managed the home, and the children supported one another from an early age. Rebecca had a naturally warm and inviting personality. She was approachable, easy to converse with, and always seemed to know how to lift people's spirits. Friends remembered her as lively and bright, the kind of person who could instantly energize a room. That blend of kindness and her mother's influence helped steer her toward a career in healthcare. After completing her training, she became a nursing assistant at a clinic, where she devoted herself to helping individuals with disabilities. She didn't just go through the motions at work. She genuinely connected with her patients, even those who were harder to reach. Her co-workers saw how dedicated she was and how much compassion she brought to her role. Outside the clinic, Rebecca led a vibrant, social life. She loved spending evenings out with friends, exploring the city, and taking spontaneous road trips. Though she had a large group of friends, she remained closest to her best friend, Nicole. People trusted Rebecca. She was honest, reliable, and the kind of person everyone turned to for advice. In her personal life, she had recently begun dating a man named Dan. The relationship was still fairly new, and her family didn't know much about him. There were some occasional disagreements, but nothing that seemed out of the ordinary. Barbara described Dan as quiet and even-tempered, though she admitted she never fully felt comfortable with him. Rebecca's ambitions stretched far beyond her daily work. She hoped to advance in her career and build a future shaped by her own choices, yet she never wanted to drift too far from her family. Her bond with her mother was especially strong. They had their routines, shared dinners, quick conversations before work, daily check-ins. Those habits would later become crucial, because the moment one of those calls went unanswered, Barbara knew immediately that something was wrong. That evening, Barbara was getting ready for her night shift at the clinic. She was used to heading out late and, as always, made sure everything was settled at home before she left. In the kitchen, she found Rebecca teasing her younger brother, laughing as she tried to snatch food from his plate. Everything felt completely ordinary. Before walking out the door, Barbara asked her daughter what she had planned for the night. Rebecca told her she planned to meet up with her friend Nicole, her boyfriend Dan, and a few others. She assured her mother she'd be home early since she had work the next morning. Barbara reminded her to stay safe before leaving for her shift. Rebecca had arranged to meet Nicole and Dan at Butcher Boy, a local bar the group often frequented. The bar was a popular hangout for young people and only a short drive from home. That night felt completely ordinary. Familiar faces, casual conversations, and plenty of laughter. No one realized it would be the last time they saw Rebecca. Everything unfolded normally at first. She sat with Nicole and Dan while the rest of their friends drifted around. At some point, Rebecca stepped away from the group and spent a little time sitting by herself. That's when a man none of them recognized approached her. He appeared significantly older than most of the bar's crowd and was dressed more like a businessman than someone out for a relaxed night out. He introduced himself as Jay Brown and started chatting with her. At first, it seemed like harmless small talk, until he picked up her phone and typed something into it. It was later discovered that he had added his number to her contacts. His behavior felt far too forward for a chance meeting, and people around her noticed. A friend named Jennifer, who happened to be there that night, later told investigators that the man immediately made her uneasy. He was asking Rebecca strange questions and seemed fixated on her from the moment he showed up. Jennifer later explained that it felt as though he had intentionally zeroed in on Rebecca, and he made no effort to hide his interest in keeping the conversation going. Wanting to be cautious, and with Rebecca's permission, Jennifer saved his number in her own phone. Despite her friend's uneasiness, Rebecca didn't appear too troubled by the interaction. She returned to her group, and from the outside, the rest of the night unfolded normally. It seemed like nothing more than a passing conversation at a bar. But that brief encounter would set off a chain of events that ultimately ended in tragedy. At 3:30 a.m., Rebecca sent her mom a quick message. "I'm home." It was part of their usual routine, a simple text to let Barbara know she'd arrived safely. After that, her phone went completely silent. The first indication that something was wrong came when Rebecca didn't show up for her morning shift. Her coworkers tried calling her and, when they couldn't reach her, contacted her family. Larry phoned Barbara to tell her that Rebecca hadn't arrived at the clinic. Soon the calls began flooding in, relatives and friends reaching out one after another, but getting no reply. The family started checking with the people she'd been with the night before. Nicole said she'd left the bar earlier than the others and hadn't spoken to Rebecca afterward. She confirmed that everything had seemed perfectly normal before she headed out. Dan told them he had dropped Rebecca off around 3:30 a.m., walked her to the door, and then left. According to him, she went inside, and that was the last time they spoke that night. By midday, it was clear that searching for Rebecca on their own wasn't leading anywhere. Barbara and Larry contacted the police and provided every detail they could. Her height, what she looked like, what she'd been wearing the night before, her work schedule, her friends, anything that might help. At first, investigators considered the routine possibilities. Maybe she'd gone somewhere unexpectedly, stayed with a friend, or her phone had simply died. But none of those explanations fit. No one had heard from her, and her phone stayed completely silent. The situation quickly shifted into something far more concerning. The most significant lead at that stage came from Dan, the last known person to have seen her. His statement that he'd walked Rebecca to her door before leaving became the official starting point of the investigation. Rebecca's family insisted on immediate action. They knew she would never disappear without informing someone responsible for her, and her reliability, never missing work without notice, made the silence even more alarming. The next step was obvious: a formal interview with Dan and a detailed examination of his timeline. He was brought in and asked to recount every moment. Dan calmly explained how he left the bar, how he got to Rebecca's home, where he parked, and the exact moment they parted ways. He maintained that he had not harmed her and hadn't seen her since that night. He handed over his phone for investigators to review and allowed them to search his apartment and car. The search was conducted that same day, and his apartment appeared normal. There were no signs of a struggle, nothing out of place, and no evidence linking him to Rebecca's disappearance. His car contained only everyday items, nothing that seemed suspicious. Neighbors confirmed they hadn't noticed anything unusual, no shouting or commotion during the relevant time, only that Dan had returned home late, which matched his account. Dan was interviewed again, with investigators probing common red flags. The exact time they left the bar, where the car had been parked, who exited first, whether they had discussed plans for the following day, and if there had been any contact after parting ways. His answers remained consistent. He emphasized that he cared deeply for Rebecca and had no reason to harm her. He agreed to take a polygraph test. While he answered baseline questions without issue, the results on the critical questions, such as were you involved in Rebecca's disappearance? Did you see her after dropping her off? And do you know where she is now? Showed signs of deception. These results were documented in the report, along with the standard disclaimer that a polygraph measures credibility rather than providing definitive proof of guilt. Investigators stressed that the polygraph findings did not correspond to any physical evidence, biological traces, or conflicting witness accounts. At the same time, they reviewed the timeline of events. Witnesses at the bar that night gave consistent accounts of when the group broke up, who left when, and confirmed there had been no signs of conflict. Their statements aligned. Meanwhile, a search of the area around Rebecca's home yielded little of significance. There were no security cameras, the yard was empty, and nearby tire tracks offered nothing useful for analysis. At that stage, investigators concluded that the theory of the boyfriend as a direct suspect had reached a dead end. There were no formal grounds to detain Dan. He remained a person of interest and was informed that he would need to stay available and provide any additional information if requested. The case was officially classified as a stalled primary theory, lacking supporting physical evidence. Investigators turned their attention to other leads, examining phone activity, reviewing security footage, and identifying any outside contacts Rebecca may have had in her final hours. This is where they hoped to uncover their first substantial break. Late one night in Stonington, a driver on a remote, unlit road noticed a small fire burning near the roadside. The driver pulled over and called emergency services. By chance, a local firefighter, off-duty but carrying an extinguisher in his vehicle, happened to be passing by. When the two men approached the flames, they quickly realized it wasn't just a patch of burning grass. The firefighter acted swiftly, using a controlled upward spray of powder to put out the fire while preserving anything that could serve as evidence. Within moments, it became horrifyingly clear that a body had been engulfed in the flames. Police arrived, quickly shutting down the road and securing the scene. Bright floodlights were set up, the perimeter was marked with tape, and investigators documented the footprints of the first responders to rule them out. Later examinations found no visible signs that the body had been dragged, nor was there noticeable blood outside the immediate area of the fire. This indicated that the act had taken place elsewhere and the remains had been transported to this location, likely to destroy evidence. Investigators found melted pieces of plastic and adhesive residue, probably from duct tape. The condition of the body made identification extremely difficult. It was severely charred, and most of the clothing had burned away. The body had been tightly wrapped in sheets and plastic, secured with multiple layers of tape. The most severe damage was to the face and limbs. Fingers were missing, and both ears and the nose had been removed. A section of skin had also been carefully cut from the back, suggesting deliberate tampering before the fire was set. Crime scene technicians followed standard photographic protocols, capturing wide shots and close-ups, documenting tire marks, shoe prints, and the likely direction of vehicle travel. Forensic teams collected fragments of melted film and bits of tape with adhesive residue, along with soil samples from the fire site and surrounding area, and swabs from the remaining wrapping materials. Everything was carefully labeled, with the time and responsible technician recorded in the chain of custody logs. At the same time, a dispatcher searched for nearby surveillance cameras or private security systems. Unfortunately, there were no public cameras on nearby utility poles, and the closest homes were too far to capture anything useful. Investigators began mapping potential routes from major highways and identifying spots where a vehicle might have turned around. Analysis of the fire's temperature and burn pattern indicated it hadn't been burning long and was likely ignited shortly before the first witness arrived, possibly with the use of some type of accelerant. A strong chemical odor lingered in the air, though no fuel containers were found at the scene. After the initial on-site examination, the remains, carefully wrapped in multiple layers, were transported to the office of the chief medical examiner. The victim's identity was still unknown. The case was assigned to Dr. Kenner, a veteran forensic pathologist experienced in complex autopsies. He adhered to strict protocols, meticulously documenting the condition of the remains, handling each layer in separate packaging, and maintaining full contamination control. The unwrapping process began with the outermost layers. Wide shots were taken first, followed by close-ups of the knot placements. The plastic wrap and sheets were removed one by one, with each piece sealed in its own evidence envelope. Adhesive strips were carefully lifted with tweezers and placed on slides for fingerprint and fiber analysis. Fire extinguisher residue was gently rinsed from specific areas to separate it from any surface particulates on the wrappings. Once the materials were removed, the basic physical characteristics of the victim were documented. A female, estimated to be around 20 years old, of average height and build. A precise rectangular patch of skin was missing from her lower back, with clean edges indicating it had been deliberately cut. The location corresponded to a common placement for large tattoos. Based on this, investigators developed an initial working theory. the perpetrator may have attempted to prevent identification by removing a tattoo. Missing persons databases were queried using this profile: female, early 20s, with a large lower back tattoo. The search focused on Connecticut, examining state records, local reports, and recent bulletins. No matches were found. Investigators then expanded the search to neighboring states, including New York, considering that the discovery site might not be where the crime occurred and that the victim could have been transported from another location. Meanwhile, all packaging materials were sent to the lab for analysis. 2 types of tests were ordered for the tape: fingerprint lifting from the adhesive side and DNA, and fiber analysis from the inner surface. The plastic layers were examined for traces of sweat, oils, microfibers, and any fuel residue. Soot and soil samples from the burn site were collected to compare with debris from potential vehicles. Dr. Kenner carried out the internal examination with extreme precision to preserve any evidence of trauma. Dr. Kenner photographed every injury with a scale for reference and described each using precise forensic terminology. Steering clear of speculating on the cause of death, he mapped bruising and burn patterns to analyze heat exposure and physical trauma later. Special attention was given to dental records. Despite the fire, the teeth were largely intact, making dental identification a viable option. The tattoo theory remained the most promising lead, offering hope for building a profile. The expanded database search finally yielded a potential match: Rebecca Coster, a 24-year-old woman from Long Island, New York. Her missing persons report contained several key details that aligned with the unidentified body found in Connecticut: age, body type, and most critically, a tattoo on her lower back corresponding to the area where the skin had been removed. Once investigators had gathered enough information, they began comparing additional identifiers: hair color, estimated height, and body type. Everything matched, but official confirmation required a forensic comparison. Given the teeth's preserved condition, Dr. Kenner recommended dental identification. Rebecca's family was notified and asked to provide her medical records. Officers from Long Island promptly collected her dental charts and personally transported them to Connecticut to ensure their security. The comparison took place the following day. The forensic team received the full set of X-rays and dental records and followed the standard identification process: matching crowns, tooth shapes, fillings, and root structures. The results were definitive. The remains were officially confirmed to be Rebecca Coster. The most difficult part was yet to come: delivering the news to her family. Detectives drove to the home of Barbara and Larry. Barbara, who was at work, received a call from her husband alerting her that the police were on their way. When she arrived and saw 2 plainclothes officers at the front door, she instantly sensed the gravity of the situation. When she asked them directly, they confirmed the unthinkable: Rebecca was gone. Her reaction was immediate and heart-wrenching. Barbara ran into the street, screaming that her daughter was dead. Neighbors witnessed the family's devastation, marking a harrowing turning point. Hope gave way to an unbearable, irreversible loss. Confirming Rebecca Coster's identity set the stage for the next phase of the investigation: tracing her connections, identifying her last interactions, and uncovering the truth behind her tragic death. Investigators turned to digital forensics, which revealed that after her final message at 3:30 a.m., Rebecca had received 2 calls from the same phone number. The area code was 617. The first call came in at 4:10 a.m. and lasted about 15 minutes, followed by a brief second call at 4:27 a.m. These were the last recorded communications from her phone. The number was linked to a prepaid phone, activated just before the incident, with no registered owner and minimal usage confined to a limited geographic area. Investigators recognized it as a burner phone, typically used for untraceable one-off contact. Using cell tower data, analysts tracked the caller moving eastward toward Rebecca's neighborhood. The timeline fit a critical window. After she returned home, she spoke for an extended period with the 617 number, then received the short follow-up call. After that, her phone went completely silent. Attempts to reach Rebecca failed, and the 617 number eventually went silent. Meanwhile, detectives pursued leads from her inner circle. A cyber unit examined the phone of her friend Jennifer, uncovering a list of recently added contacts. One name stood out: J. Brown, also associated with a 617 area code. Technical analysis confirmed it matched the number that had called Rebecca in the early morning hours. This linked the anonymous caller from the night of Rebecca's disappearance to the man first seen at the bar the previous evening. Investigators pressed on, reviewing surveillance footage from the bar to reconstruct the timeline. The video showed Rebecca first chatting with friends and later sitting alone, precisely when she was approached by the same man Jennifer had described during questioning. The investigation made a major breakthrough when forensic analysts recovered fingerprints from the adhesive side of the tape used to wrap the body. Despite the fire damage, 2 complete thumbprints were successfully lifted. A database search revealed the name Evans Gauthier. The man who had previously introduced himself as J. Brown was officially identified. Gauthier's background immediately raised concerns. He had prior encounters with law enforcement, though none had resulted in serious charges. Reports noted aggressive behavior toward women and repeated complaints from neighbors about loud arguments with a girlfriend. There were also suspicions of his involvement in coercive activities targeting women, though nothing had been confirmed. One particularly disturbing allegation drew investigators' attention: claims that Gauthier had been photographing women in his basement, which he reportedly set up as a makeshift studio. Though these claims had never been substantiated, they were now taken far more seriously in light of the ongoing investigation. With Gauthier's identity confirmed, the focus shifted to locating him and gathering enough evidence to move him from a person of interest to a formal suspect. Surveillance was quietly established near his girlfriend's Bronx residence, with rotating teams keeping discreet watch over all access points throughout the evening. A pickup truck previously linked to the case was observed parked in front of the building, stationary. The night passed without further incident. In the morning, a man exited the building and got into the truck. Officers boxed in the vehicle and detained him just outside the residence. Gauthier provided written consent for searches of both the vehicle and the property. Investigators examined the apartment and basement, with witnesses present in a storage room, documenting everything carefully. Investigators discovered a paint roller tray, a bucket of paint, and several containers of strong cleaning agents. The walls and floor had been freshly painted, with a color that didn't match the surrounding area and obvious roller marks. While no direct evidence linked the space to the crime, the materials and signs of recent cleaning were documented and collected as evidence. The pickup truck was taken to a forensic lab for a detailed examination. Analysts focused on the center console and the area between the driver's seat and the floorboard. They found dried reddish stains trailing toward the floor, with trace amounts also on the lower part of the front seat and the floor mat. All samples were carefully swabbed, packaged alongside control swabs, and meticulously labeled for lab analysis. Investigators collected additional samples from the vehicle, including fibers from the seat fabric, fine particles from crevices in the center console, and a small area of harsh-smelling cleaning agent applied to a piece of plastic, likely an attempt to mask or destroy residue. No relevant evidence was found in the trunk, but tire impressions were recorded, and the floor mats were sealed for soil analysis. A preliminary test confirmed the presence of blood near the base of the console. Later DNA analysis matched it to Rebecca Coster, consistent with her known profile. Importantly, the same test excluded the suspect's DNA from key areas, confirming that no cross-contamination had occurred during evidence collection. After his arrest, Evans agreed to speak with investigators, claiming he was ready to tell the truth. According to Evans, Rebecca's death was accidental. He claimed they met at the bar, after which he called her and invited her to his place. She supposedly agreed and willingly got into his vehicle. From there, his account shifted into a series of questionable explanations. He said that during the drive, Rebecca suddenly began having trouble breathing and was foaming at the mouth. He alleged that he helped her out of the car and brought her into the basement to get her some water. Once inside, he claimed she slipped, fell onto a set of dumbbells, and hit her head on the concrete. Evans said she began bleeding heavily and died shortly afterward. He insisted he panicked and didn't call emergency services because he believed no one would accept that it had been a simple accident. He said he chose to cover up what had happened, wrapping her body in plastic and fabric, securing everything with tape, and leaving her in the basement. A few hours later, he moved her remains into his truck and drove to the Port Jefferson Ferry Terminal. After crossing into Connecticut, he continued until he found a secluded stretch of road near Stonington. According to his account, he placed the body by the roadside, poured gasoline over it, and set it on fire, hoping to eliminate any evidence. But his version quickly fell apart. The medical examiner found no fatal head trauma, no skull fractures, no internal hemorrhaging. Instead, they identified stab wounds to the liver and neck, each inflicted while the victim was still alive. These findings directly contradicted his story of an accidental fall. His explanation also failed to address the missing fingers and the removed patch of skin from Rebecca's lower back. Why would someone who witnessed an accidental death go to such lengths to erase the victim's identity? The timeline didn't add up either. Evans claimed all the blood loss happened in the basement. Yet forensic testing revealed blood traces in the front cabin of the vehicle, indicating Rebecca had already been injured before or while she was in the car. Contradicting his account, Evans' story increasingly appeared to be a calculated attempt to distance himself from the actual violence. By framing it as an accident and emphasizing only a panicked cover-up, he tried to mask the truth, but the forensic report provided the final, indisputable evidence. Dr. Kenner presented the findings based strictly on the evidence. The key conclusion: death resulted from sharp force trauma to critical areas of the body, causing massive internal bleeding in the abdominal cavity. Large clots of blood were found saturating surrounding tissues, indicating the heart was still beating at the time of injury. Blood had actively flowed into the wound and pooled internally. The bleeding stemmed from a deep laceration to the liver. Consistent with a stab wound, the pattern and distribution of blood within the cavity confirmed it had occurred while cardiac activity continued. Such internal blood layering would have been impossible if the heart had stopped immediately. Additional puncture wounds were also discovered in the soft tissue of the neck, along with evidence that air had entered the venous system. Examination of the heart revealed a gas-blood mixture, a clear indication of an air embolism. This occurs when air enters a damaged vein and travels to the right side of the heart. It explained the rapid fatality despite preserved breathing and blood pressure, suggesting Rebecca was still alive and breathing when the neck injuries were inflicted. The fire was ruled out as the cause of death. No soot or combustion residue was found in the lungs, confirming she was not breathing during the fire. Toxicology helped clarify the timeline further. Although she had consumed alcohol earlier that evening, no trace remained in her bloodstream. Her body had metabolized it, indicating several hours had passed between leaving the bar and the time of death, consistent with the timing of the late-night calls. The expert conclusion was unequivocal. This was a violent death caused by multiple stab wounds inflicted while the victim was alive. The theory of an accidental injury was completely refuted by the medical evidence. The district attorney charged Evans Gauthier with second-degree murder, along with additional counts related to concealment and destruction of evidence. The defense argued that while there had been poor decisions and panic, there was no proof of intent to kill. They emphasized the absence of direct witnesses, the missing murder weapon, and questioned the forensic interpretations, offering alternative explanations for the trauma. The prosecution, however, relied heavily on physical evidence. What ultimately swayed the jury was the blood spatter analysis from inside the pickup truck. The forensic specialist presented diagrams and photographs showing the blood's placement in the front cabin, evidence that contradicted claims that the body had only been transported in the back or that the stains were merely superficial. Barbara attended every day of the trial. She listened quietly, showing no outward emotion, speaking only when the court requested information about her daughter's habits or background for context. Even as graphic photos from the vehicle and forensic reports were presented, she remained in the courtroom, never leaving or interrupting the proceedings. Her steady presence left a strong impression on everyone present. The family was determined to see justice served, despite the pain. After all witness testimony concluded, the judge instructed the jury on how to assess the evidence and apply the legal standard of reasonable doubt. Closing arguments followed. The defense emphasized panic and the absence of intent to harm, while the prosecution highlighted deliberate actions both before and after the killing, arguing they demonstrated clear intent. The jury was sent to deliberate and returned a swift, unanimous verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. They concluded that Rebecca's death resulted from intentional violence and that the defendant's claim of panic was inconsistent with the physical evidence. During sentencing, the judge highlighted not only the act of taking a life but also the disturbing efforts to conceal it afterward. He emphasized that these actions demonstrated a deliberate attempt to erase the victim's identity and deny her family the truth, describing them as inhumane acts that reflected extreme cruelty. The sentence imposed was at the upper end of the legal range, 25 years to life in prison, chosen to reflect both the severity of the crime and the defendant's continued denial of responsibility. Even with the weight of overwhelming evidence, Barbara delivered a final statement thanking everyone who had worked on the case and brought it to trial. The verdict offered a measure of solace, knowing the man responsible would never walk free or harm anyone else. Yet she acknowledged that no sentence could restore her daughter's life or truly mend the deep wound left behind. Barbara made it clear she could not, and would not, forgive the person who inflicted such enduring pain on her family. While the trial concluded with a legal resolution, for Rebecca's loved ones it marked only the beginning of a lifelong journey through grief and loss. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.